Last season, the Giants and the Washington football team were competing heavily for a playoff spot. They kind of were directly competing against each other, and it came down to the Giants, tying and winning those two games against each other. If Washington won both those games, they would have been in the playoffs. Giants would have been out. So who do I think will be better this year? Both have made some changes to try and become a better roster. Let's just get into it and talk. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to compare each roster, each position group against each other for each of these teams, and then at the end I will give my overall win predictions and who I think will win. Winning in the most categories doesn't guarantee that I will say that you are the better team, but in some cases it might. So first, we're going to start off with pass rush, which, there's a lot of stars for the Giants, right? The Giants have definitely stars of Thibodeau, who I thought was really good last year. Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence can both rush the passer from the inside. Would like to see a little bit more depth. Maybe this is the year Azeez Ojulari breaks out. I don't know. I don't love the depth situation really for either of these two rosters. I do feel like for Washington, I think they have like 4 stars with or at least 4 potential stars. You have Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne on the inside. Montez Sweat is probably the best just pure pass rusher out of either of these two teams, although Thibodeau could certainly, get up to that level next year. Sweat's really underrated. Chase Young is the kind of the question there of what are we going to get out of Chase Young. If those guys are healthy, I think it's an easy Washington victory, potentially. I think I'm still going to go to slight edge to Washington pass rush, but I don't think it's a huge jump. As for run defense with these two teams, I don't think that there's a massive jump either. I think this is, again, a coin flip level scenario. I do like both of these, interior defensive lines, as I mentioned. I think the Giants with Bobby Okereke is probably the best linebacker in the group, and probably why I'm going to give the slight edge to the Giants there. So I would say both have the same tier in terms of run defense and pass rush. I'm going to split the two there, so it's 1-1 after 2. We're then going to the running backs, which, listen, I like Brian Robinson. I do. I like Antonio Gibson. They're not Saquon. This goes to the Giants. The coverage, I kind of went a little out of order, but coverage here for the Giants and for Washington, I think you could argue several different ways. I think that a lot of it comes down to Emmanuel Forbes, the first-round selection from Washington. If he hits, I think this could actively be a really good coverage unit for them because, they have other guys. They have Kendall Fuller, who I think is good. I think Danny Johnson should be a good third corner. I think Cameron Curl's a good safety. Maybe they could use another safety. Got Derek Forrest currently listed there. But there's some optimism for the Giants, but some real question marks as well. Like Adoree Jackson, I didn't think had his best year last year, but has had some good years. They also are kind of relying on a rookie a little bit with Deonte Banks. I mean, both teams really, whichever rookie is better will probably be the better, team next year, or at least coverage-wise. I do think that there's a better supporting cast, though, around the rookie corner for Washington. So, going to give the edge to Washington. So, that now means we're tied up 2-2. The receiving core, do we even have to discuss it? We know which team has the better receiving core. I think the Giants have certainly made some changes to try and get a better receiving core for Jones, adding Darren Waller, who I think could help. They drafted Jalen Hyatt, who I think that they like. But, the Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson, all guys, as of right now, you would probably feel good about if they're your number 3 option, but I don't know if you'd feel great about them as a number 2, certainly not as a number 1. Again, I don't think it's a disaster like it was last year, but when you're comparing it to Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, it's not quite on that level. As for the offensive line, another thing with the Giants is there's a huge swing as to how good their offensive line could potentially be. It really kind of all goes down to Evan Neal. And if Evan Neal is great, you could legitimately have a dominant tackle tandem of Andrew Thomas, who's one of the best left tackles in the league, and Evan Neal. I like the inside, kind of. I think Mark Lanowski didn't have his best year last year, but I still think is solid. And then you have Joshua Edenzu, who has only played a couple of games. He was a day 2 pick. John Michael Smith, a day 2 pick who's a rookie. So there's some concerns here already. In fact, you could argue the Giants have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. I don't hate the Washington Commanders offensive line. I really don't. I like Charles Leno Jr. as a tackle. I'm not saying it's a great offensive line either. There's definitely some question marks. Nick Gates, Ricky Stromberg, and Andrew Wiley, all new players. I kind of think Andrew Wiley gets a bit too much criticism. I don't think he's a terrible tackle. Probably, again, he's probably just a guy you want as like the, I don't know, is he a top 50 tackle in the league? I don't know, but he's like a top 64 tackle in the league kind of player. So I don't know if you're getting too excited about paying him to come over, but should be fine. Sam Cosme should be fine at guard. I think it'll be I think it's better, although these are not the bright spots of either of these teams. So I'm giving the edge here to Washington. So Washington now has a 6-4 lead. We have 2 more categories: head coach and quarterback. The head coach is got to be the guy who just won Coach of the Year for the Giants. Brian Daboll is the better option, I think. Brian Daboll is, he was voted the best coach in football last year. I like Ron Rivera fine, but I don't know if I don't know if he brings the value he used to bring. And for quarterback play, listen, I'm still going Daniel Jones as the better option over Jacoby Brissett. If it's Brissett. If it's Sam Howell, I think there's a pretty big jump there. If it's Brissett, I actually don't think it's a massive gap between the two. And I think you could even argue Brissett was the better player last season. Brissett was actively very good for Cleveland and really didn't get a ton of credit. Now, small sample size, although you could argue that with Daniel Jones as well. So you could certainly make the argument that Jones is the better overall or you could make the argument that Brissett is the better overall player. But I think what I like about Jones, I know what he can do well. I feel like I can game plan a strategy around him. Whereas for Brissett, he still feels like a bit of a wild card for me. So I'm going to give the edge to the Giants, although I don't think it's massive. So as a whole, we have a tie. So 4 categories for each of these 2 teams, and it's one of those situations where, I think depending on what you value, you would probably have different opinions on where these 2 teams could rank. I do have the slight edge for Washington, though. I have them as a 8-win team and the Giants as a 7-win team. Giants fans don't like that I've kind of hated on their team this offseason, which, listen, I kind of hated on them all last season, too. So they're just a team that kind of construction of how they're built is a team I don't expect to do that well. I was wrong last year. Was I just wrong once? Were they the exception to the rule? Or is my philosophy flawed and maybe they are going to continue to be good? Like, I don't value my opinions as strongly as some other people seem to value my opinions sometimes, where you are going to be wrong about stuff. But at the end of the day, to me, I thought that the Giants were, they won 9.5 games, but their analytics suggested they should have been like a 5-win team. So I do believe that they're better than the 5-win team that maybe the analytics say, maybe because of they get the most out of their talent, all that good stuff. They're well coached. But I don't know if I really see them repeating what they did last year. I think there was some luck that played into it last year, and it kind of got hot at the right time. Again, the difference is if the young players take a step forward. If Kayvon Thibodeau goes from being a good edge rusher last year to an elite edge rusher, okay, now there's a difference. If Evan Neal goes from being one of the worst tackles in the league last year to a really good tackle, well, now they're a different team. The Giants certainly have the higher upside, but if I have to give a prediction, I am going to predict Washington over the Giants. But again, those are just my thoughts and my philosophy. So let me know in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.